Ready for that?
Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual spring speaker series in Boston. I am Bree Mullins, and I'm the chapter engagement manager in the Northeast for the Foundation Fighting Blindness. Before we kick off our incredible presentation today, I want to remind everyone of a few keyboard strokes to help you navigate Zoom during this presentation. Currently, you were all muted upon entry. So if you are using a Windows computer this evening, you can use Alt-A to mute or unmute, Alt-Y to raise or lower your hand, Alt-V to start and stop your video, and Control-T to enter the chat. For our Mac users out there, you can use Command-Shift-A to mute and unmute, Command-Shift-V to start and stop video, Option-Y to raise and lower your hand, and Command-K to jump to the chat.
How do I do this?
Throughout the presentations, feel free to send your questions in the chat, raise your hand, or come off mute. We will work hard to make sure that everyone's questions are answered. A quick background on the foundation for those of you who may be new to us, or a refresher for those who are not. The Foundation Fighting Blindness is the largest private funder of retinal degenerative disease research in the world and has raised over $856 million to date. We fund lab research, clinical trials, genetic testing, and more, and we cover the entire spectrum of inherited retinal diseases. The chapter network brings the community together to end blinding retinal diseases. The three main areas of focus for our chapters are sharing the latest advancements of research with the local community, providing access to local resources to guide individuals through their personal journey, and accelerating our mission by participating in fundraising events and creating new ways to fundraise locally. There are many ways to get involved with the chapter should you be interested. We have volunteer opportunities throughout the year, fundraisers, and speaker series like this one. I also want to be sure you all know about our My Retina Tracker program. This registry is free to you and also includes a genetic testing program for free as well. If you would like more information on My Retina Tracker, please reach out to coordinator@myretinatracker.org. Now I would like to pass it on to our Director of Events, Katie, to tell you a bit about upcoming events in your area.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bree, for having me all here tonight. My name is Katie Van Benskoten. As Bree said, I am an events director with the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And so I'm here to talk to you guys tonight about our upcoming Boston Vision Walk. Our Boston Vision Walk takes place in the fall, and we've actually already been approved for our date. So our 15th annual Boston Vision Walk will be on Saturday, October 15th at Artisani Park in Brighton. One of the things I love about this park is that it has fairly easy access. So if you are getting a ride to the park, it's like the only place with free parking out there. So please do join us that day.
Not the video.
The website for our event is give.fightingblindness.org/Boston Vision Walk. And after I finish talking, I will drop that into our chat as well in case you need to access it. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit more about the walk. So it is a fun, family-friendly event, rain or shine. We're hoping for shine, where we'll have music, refreshments, kids activities, and a lot of great spirit. We plan to feature other vision-related organizations and programs to have info tables about their services at the walk, and we're always looking for recommendations for groups that you would like to see come out and be represented that day. The walk route itself is a full 5K or a 3.1 mile loop on paved paths through Artisani Park, big loop right across the bridges around the river. So it's a lovely walk out on a nice fall day. Our Boston Vision Walk brings in supporters from a much wider area than just Boston. We have teams that come from all throughout New England. We have some from Vermont, from Connecticut, from Rhode Island, and all over the place. So please do come out and walk with us. And it probably wouldn't surprise you to know that our Boston Vision Walk is one of our largest vision walks across the country. And this year is not going to be an exception. We have a very lofty goal. We're shooting to raise $200,000 for retinal research. So just big goal, but we know we can do it. We've done it before and we could do it again. So while I'm talking about our goals and our success, I did want to mention a few of our national partners with the Vision Walk. We could not do what we do without their support. And I have their logos pictured on screen, but our national Vision Walk sponsor and partner is Spark Therapeutics. We have our national Vision Walk partner, which is Samsung Platinum Dealer Network. And we have our Foundation Fighting Blindness National Visionary Champion, which is the Janssen Pharmaceutical Companies of Johnson & Johnson. So I mentioned our website earlier. Again, that's give.fightingblindness.org/Boston Vision Walk. And on that site, you can register yourself, a team. You can get tips and tricks for fundraising, find out your walk day details, and also make a donation. So all of those things are available on the site, but you don't have to do it alone. If navigating the website is something that you would love, help with, you can always contact myself or my colleague, Molly Biegelman. We are our Northeast Region events team, and I will put both of our emails in the chat window as well tonight. So I just wanted to say we were back in person last fall, but it was a rainy day. So this is like back in person part 2. We're so excited to be out there with everyone and having a really great time, hopefully without a downpour this year, and being out there to continue celebrating 50 years of the Foundation Fighting Blindness and 15 years of the Boston Walk, and the support of the hundreds and thousands of people who have supported the Boston Vision Walk over the years, and keep us moving forward day after day. So I hope you'll all join us for the walk. If you have any questions or you're looking to get involved as a committee member, a team, or anything like that, please do reach out, join us. It's the more the merrier. We'd love to have you there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Martha Steele, our chapter president, our walk chair, board member, all around a wonderful person. So I'll turn it over to Martha.
Thanks, Katie. I'm going to amend your note about the Vision Walk, meaning rain or shine. It is rain, snow, or shine. We have occasionally had snow, but fortunately this year it sounds like the walk will be on October 15, a tad earlier than usual. So I'm hoping the chance of snow is quite minimal, but we've had all sorts of weather. But thank you so much for your introduction. My name is Martha Steele. I have Usher syndrome. And I am completely blind at this point. And I'm very excited about tonight's presentation. This topic is very important to me, having and being able to access whatever sighted individuals can access means that I can participate just as easily and fully as anyone sighted. And I think that's really all I am asking for, is that I can access material, information, services and so forth that will help me participate as fully as I can in the world. And so I'm really quite excited about this. I think the foundation is obviously focused on raising funds for retinal disease research, which is critical, but we're also trying to support our community and help us cope with our vision loss while the research is going on. And so the coping strategy is just as important, if not more important, to most of us right now than the research. So at the same time, I'm as passionate as I am about supporting services that help us best navigate the world non-visually. I am equally passionate about supporting research. And I have often said, and I will say it again, If I do not support the research as someone affected by one of these retinal diseases, then how can I expect anybody else to support it? I have no idea if research advances will be sufficient to help me in my lifetime, but it's very important to me to continue to support as much as I can the incredible research that is being made. And we all want treatments today. We want it yesterday. The fact of the matter is it takes time, but there is absolutely no question that the level and the status of research today is light years ahead of where it was just 10 years ago, never mind 50 years ago when the foundation was formed. So we have to be persistent, we have to be consistent, we have to be determined, we have to be resilient, and support what we can, support each other, support our research, and do what we can to move the field forward. So with that, I want to introduce Tim Wallace, who is a current co-resource chair here in the Boston chapter. Tim was instrumental in getting this particular speaker series organized and getting commitment from our presenters. Tim became involved because his mother has RP. He grew up in Westchester County in New York State, which is the home of Guiding Eyes for the Blind, where my guide dog, Alvin, came from. And so I guess I feel a special affinity to Tim because he comes from a region of a terrific guide dog school. So with that, Tim, take it away.
Thank you, Martha. What a great intro, and I'll take it one further. I hope in mid-October I'm still on the golf course because my game needs the work. I'll say that for sure. I will also, I want to thank Bree and the rest of the Boston chapter leadership team for trusting me with this presentation here. I'm fairly new to the leadership team, and it's been a great experience, but it was early to trust me with this event. So thank you so much for putting your faith in me here. Accessibility. So that's tonight's topic. Two organizations that are embedding accessibility with everything they do is, Microsoft and Smartsheet. So we have Matt. I'm not even going to try to say your last name, Matt. From Microsoft, and Daniel, who is from Smartsheet. For those who don't know Smartsheet, it's a software as a service platform that supports collaboration and work management across organizations. And I don't know if I need to introduce Microsoft, but Microsoft is the home of Excel, PowerPoint, Word, and Project. And I'm probably forgetting all the other suite options that are out there, Matt, but you can get into the details as we go through. And I'm not going to steal anyone's thunder today, but I think one of the main things that I wanted to open up with is that accessibility is something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. It's something that's ever evolving and only increasing in visibility and importance for the greater low vision community, and even outside of the low vision community, right? Accessibility needs to be embedded in everything we're thinking about. Smartsheet is an organization of about 3,000 people and about approximately 400 million in revenue. Microsoft has over 200,000 people globally, and their revenues are in the hundreds of billions of dollars. But guess what? They're both thinking of accessibility, the foundation and the core of what they're doing. And I think it speaks volumes, and it's super important. And without further ado, I want to introduce Matt and Daniel from Microsoft and Smartsheet. And I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get it going here.
Perfect. Hey, everybody. We'll kick it off here in a second.
I will go presentation mode, Matt.
Yep.
And let me know when we're all set here. Will that work?
Not yet.
All right, hold
Oh.
on. There we go. Gotta hit share. All set? Or no?
Yes. Can you go full, do the presentation mode
Yeah.
and then full screen it?
There we go.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So the way we're gonna kind of run through this is Daniel and I are going to play some ping pong back and forth. Like we'll just switch it up with each other back and forth as we go. But the title of the presentation, for anybody that's using any sort of screen readers or anything, hopefully you got the presentation ahead of time. At Microsoft, that's a thing that we proactively do with every presentation, is make sure that the content's shared so that folks can have it spun up on their own in case there's a technical issue. Being full screen in Zoom, I'm hoping, I've never tested it, I'm hoping that full screen, like a screen reader, will read the slides. If they don't, we can share the deck and the content, and you'll have access to everything. The title of the message tonight is accessibility in the UX, and it's basically the way Microsoft and Smartsheet are designing accessibility within their products. I mean, it is a fabric woven into every single one of our products. So that's kind of what we'll dig into from both different companies' eyes and see how things are looking. If you can advance one for me. So on this next one, it's short little bio. My name is Matt Filipenko. I have been at Microsoft 8 years. I am a M365 Apps Ranger, or a cloud solution or customer solutions architect is our main internal title. External, it's a M365 Apps Ranger, where I work on the Microsoft Office apps, and I work with large enterprises, or basically anybody. Right now, I've been working with a lot of the government organizations on getting Office rolled out and installed on their environments. Microsoft 365 apps is the most accessible version of Office we've ever done. And Windows 11 is the most accessible version of Windows. So our job as the Rangers are to basically put gasoline on that everywhere and get it into everybody's hands, make sure everybody's using it and functioning, because it breaks down every barrier. So go ahead and advance for me. So a little bit about me really fast. I was diagnosed with Stargardt's disease and inherited retinal disease at 19. There's a link there on the slide. I will drop links in as we need them. But that link kicks out to The Blind Life. Sam is an awesome guy with Stargardt's that did a great video. So if you have Stargardt's or know someone that has it, his video there is a great positioning tool that I use all the time, because he hit it spot on for exactly what I see. My visual acuity in my left eye, it's 2300. Right eye is 2400. So I still have some sight left. Mainly for me, like, the biggest thing is when I look directly at stuff, it disappears. But the worst thing is I'm the only one that it disappears for. Everybody else can see it. My impacted issues are driving, flying, and just daily work. So those are a few of the things that I'm impacted mostly by. On this next slide that we'll bring up here, some of the tools that I use, I won't go into each one of these just for lack of time, but these are going to be linked in the slide deck. So if anybody has low vision, or even some of these tools can be great for blind, to where they have OCR and different things built into it. For myself, I use the Microsoft Magnifier inside Windows 11. It started in Windows 7, so if you have Windows 7, Windows 10, or Windows 11, you can use it. I have it programmed to a mouse right here to invoke the Magnifier executable. So basically what that does is, a lot of people that use Magnifier press the Windows key and the plus sign. I press the button on my mouse, so it gives me a faster efficiency. On my mobile device, I use my camera. I use Office Lens with Immersive Reader. From assistive technology purposes, I have a Ruby 7 HD, a smaller handheld magnifier. I have an Iris Vision Live wearable headset. And then for a desktop magnifier, I use a Cloverbook HD Pro. They're really, really nice. So they're some cool tools if you're low vision and need some neat assistive technology. So now I'll pass it over to Daniel really quick, and and then he'll kick it off.
Yeah, so my name is Daniel Fortine. I'm a senior UX designer and accessibility champion at Smartsheet. And I work on the design system team, which is the team that builds the assets and components that our other designers use to create experiences. So accessibility is a really core part of my work to make sure the components and the building blocks that we design, that we provide to our designers to build with, are accessible for the most part, so they can create great experiences. I've been at Smartsheet for 2 years. I personally, I rely on my glasses. I've been working in technology for 25 years, and that's taken a toll on my vision just from working with computers so much. So I use glasses for my work, and I use keyboard only whenever I can to help reduce repetitive stress from holding a mouse for too long. So that's my situation. Next slide. So how do we incorporate accessibility into corporate culture? I think it's going to start. My hand is over to Matt first to talk about Microsoft, and then I'll go into Smartsheet.
Yep, perfect. All right, so basically for us, creating a more inclusive world is our main goal at Microsoft. So we can buzz through this one, and then on the next one, it's just one of the facts. I mean, I think this number is ever changing, but there's over 1 billion people in the world with disabilities, and some of the numbers out there are staggering from an accessibility standpoint, employment standpoint for people with low vision or blind, with inherited retinal diseases. I mean, there's just a massive gap on technology to where we need to make it more accessible. So we could go ahead and advance on that one. From Microsoft's mission, our main mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And on this next slide, the key differentiator there is empowering every single person in every context. So a lot of people they see that first mission statement, and they're like, oh yeah, you're just a big, giant behemoth tech company. But they are really, really hyper-focused. We just had the Ability Summit on the 10th and the 11th this week, and we released accessible products, like tons of them for brand new mice and all sorts of stuff that's coming out. So they're really leading from the front on trying to make sure that the world is becoming more accessible, because if it's more accessible for everyone, then it just better offs everyone. You'll see a slide here in a few minutes where I'll talk about that things will impact all of us at some point in life. From a disability standpoint, they come in many shapes and sizes. Ours that we're mainly focusing on with Foundation Fighting Blindness are the inherited retinal diseases. So on that visual side is the main kind of call out there. But there can be also hearing and cognitive and speech and mobility and even neural disabilities. So that a lot of the tools that we've been developing are built in a way that they will support all of these different all of the different needs that every single person has. I mean, there's tons of different technology features that we've released over this past 3 or 4 years that help every single person. My son, my youngest son, has dyslexia, and we use dictate and read aloud, some of the cool features. Go ahead and advance. So from the Microsoft side, one of the things here that I wanted to touch on was accessibility. It starts with the culture in the workplace. At Microsoft, we do inclusive hiring. So we are proactively looking for people that are low vision, that are blind, that have different abilities that like per se, like if I hire a developer and they're totally blind, they're going to think about the product differently. They're going to build it differently, and we're going to be able to uncover gaps that sighted developers might not catch. In addition, Microsoft did company-wide training last year. As we just said in the beginning, I think we're close to like 280,000. There's a ton of employees worldwide, and the whole company last year did a training called Accessibility 101. So every single person in the company was mandated to take this training. So that really opened the doors for us to just equip everybody about how to make decisions and how to make sure your content and the things that they're creating is accessible. The other option here is that the employee resource groups, those are internal groups of employees that work together. We have a disability ERG internally, as well as a MSVIP. It doesn't stand for very important people. It stands for visually impaired persons. So the MSVIP alias, I'm on that. There's a bunch of people that are on there, and we all work together, report bugs, report issues, share insights, and different things like that. At Microsoft, the disability is a strength, and from a basically, you can jump forward there, Tim. The roadmap here, I'm not going to cover each one of these, but basically in general, at Microsoft in 2008, the Disability Employee Resource Group was formed. Then we jump forward. There's in 2012, the Disability Answer Desk was formed. What's really cool about that is it's a desk of all sorts of employees that support the products, but their whole goal is to uncover and isolate accessibility issues. Anything that is blocking a user with a disability, it's called Disability Answer Desk is the team, and they basically work with consumers, and there's one called EDAD, Enterprise Disability Answer Desk, and they work with the big enterprises. And every single day I see email threads on those groups of companies reporting accessibility things, or an end user that just bought Office having some issues with Windows 11 and Narrator or something like that. Recently in 2015, our CEO made a mission to announce that accessibility is going to be #1 for us. So in 2020, we actually made a 5-year commitment. So that's why you're going to see over these next few years, tons of products just hit the market where we are absolutely hyper-focused on accessibility in all forms and fashions for everyone. Because we believe if we build it, it's not just going to help us and help that person, but it will help each person that's impacted. Go ahead and advance. So on here, the next thing, for us to create the momentum inside a company, you basically enabling a voice for inclusion. I will share the link for this. It's called the Accessibility Reminder app. It's an app an add-in that installs in Office, and then it will allow you to notify people that you're collaborating with. So if you're working with some other folks at work, you're low vision, or you use a screen reader, you can drop that accessibility reminder in the document, in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and then it'll light up as a modern comment and tell all the people that you're working with that it'll point them over to the accessibility checker, which will help them navigate through and understand contrast issues and alt text issues on images that they submit, that if they don't put alt text on it, a screen reader won't read it. Next thing is the empathy through stories and experiences. And then also equipping the users with accessibility tools. The accessibility checker is one of them that will buzz through a document, a Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and tell you what's wrong with it. Dictate and read aloud. Dictate will actually type your messages for you in Outlook or on your phone. Read aloud will read it for you. And then there's been a ton. I call out the colors and contrast settings for Windows 11, but there's a lot more on Windows 11 that's been released lately. Go ahead and jump forward. This is a quick shout out for that accessibility reminder app. On the top right, there is an image up there that should have alt text on it. And it basically shows what that accessibility reminder looks like in the Office app. And the way you would use it, you'd be able to drop it on the Office app and then just equip the people that you're working with on how to make that document accessible. What we're learning from the Microsoft side is there's a lot of companies that need help, that need to step through it and need to understand it. And these are just some of the tools that we're trying to release to help give a voice to the person that needs the accessibility. Go ahead and jump forward. And then, so as far as like building empathy, we find and equip accessibility champions in the workplace. So if you work somewhere, talk to your manager, talk to your leadership, and ask if you could be an accessibility champion in their org. Creating awakening projects, what I did with that one. We also shared this on the Ability Summit. we took our leadership, like our CVP, with like our head, not our CEO, but like our really big leader in our company, and we had them use Magnifier, and we had them use Microsoft Narrator or Windows Narrator as a screen reader. And the purpose there was we gave them 2 tasks. One was with accessible content, one was with inaccessible content, just so they could see the experience of, wow, if I don't add alt text, or if I don't add insert images into my emails, like what are the fundamental things that break for someone that needs the accessibility out of it? So those awakening projects really worked well for us internally. Thirdly and last, the workplace accommodations are helpful. Those 3 things that I mentioned earlier, my Ruby 7, my Cloverbook, and my Iris Vision, were all paid for by Microsoft through our workplace accommodations team. So if you work at a corporation, or you're near a local, I forget the name of them, but I'll remember it later. There's a ton of other offices too that can offer support. Go ahead and jump forward. Real quick, here's the links for the accessibility checker and the accessibility ribbon. We have a ribbon inside PowerPoint that is available to help you with the accessibility steps. And then that accessibility for Microsoft 365 links out to a ton of documentation that you can have for making sure that anything you're using with Microsoft 365 is accessible. And now I'll kick it over to Daniel. Sorry for buzzing through that. I know we're a little short on time, so I was just trying to move quick.
Thanks, Matt, for that setup. And similarly, so Smartsheet is not nearly as big as Microsoft, but our own XD department has doubled in the 2 years that I've been there, and the year before that, it had doubled also. So we are a growing UX org that we're really pushing this forward. So Smartsheet is a cloud-based collaborative work management platform, and one of our marketing, one of our internal, one of our messaging slogans is, we empower anyone to drive meaningful change. We believe that that should really mean anyone. So we want to make sure that we're putting our values in play and making sure that anyone includes all abilities, as well as customer segments or markets or industries. So next slide. So how do we enhance corporate culture to include accessibility? At Smartsheet, we started with 4 steps. So next slide. A lot of it was awareness. So we would have lunch and learns and workshops to show the importance of accessibility to leadership and to engineers and to different product teams. We had a lot of attention called to customers who were asking about our VPAT and asking if we were accessible or how accessible we were. We built empathy in a similar way to what Matt talked about, particularly in things like initiating no mouse periods of time, where we encourage employees to unplug their mouse and try to complete their tasks the way they normally do, to raise awareness of the people who have mobility impairments and have to rely on a custom input device, or don't have a pointer or a stylus to work with. We've been broadcasting usability sessions that we conduct to show the pain and the real life experience that people have when they're using our software. And we've encouraged all of our employees, whenever possible, to attend any of the online accessibility conferences. AXCon in particular, last year and this year, we had quite a lot of people signing up to attend sessions over 2 days to learn more about accessibility in their different roles. And we also talked about the business impact. So when customers ask, "Oh, your VPAT is 2 years old. How compliant are you? Have you made any changes to your program, to your product?" And so having visibility into that and being able to share with leadership the potential impact of that. Really large companies asking how accessible we are. An example, like a company like Amazon, if they're going to vet a third-party tool for their employees to use, they have to make sure that it meets their accessibility requirements for their employees. So when those bigger customers are asking us about that, it really raises awareness and helps to provide impetus for us to take on some of those changes. Expanding into other markets as well. Government EDU have very strict accessibility requirements. If you're going to be a tool for an educational platform or a government agency, you have to be fully accessible. And so we're getting a lot that helps us to formulate that, to build the momentum around that. And then more importantly, we have to have a strategy. If we can tell our teams, we have several hundred different teams working on different things. How do you take them forward? How do you empower them to make the right choices? We say we have to do this accessibility thing, but we need to have a good strategy for how we go forward with that. Next slide. So our initial strategy a year and a half ago was to conduct a series of internal audits for all of our software tools, and using available tools that were out there, and knowing that the automation doesn't catch everything, but we knew that before we kicked off a new VPAT process, which is your voluntary product accessibility template, we want to make sure that a lot of the things that we've identified using the tools, like missing ARIA labels or tags, missing alt text or contrast issues, that we fix all of those before initiating a new VPAT, so that our VPAT would catch the next level of issues beyond that we wanted to make sure we had bandwidth to address. So we did that, and we've done a major initiative to push a lot of this forward in the UX design process. So the push left the idea that we want to make sure that we're designing experiences that are accessible from scratch. All new features are accessible. New employees and current employees are made aware that this is how we do it. So that's part of that culture change. We just, as far as they know, it's always been that way, and we have to instill that. Asking those questions: is this accessible? But how does this impact people with different abilities? Next slide. So how do you embed accessibility into a product lifecycle? Go to the next slide. So for UX side, one of the things that I did when I first came to Smartsheet was to create a component library for providing annotation to design. So helping designers understand how to create a tab, how to define a tab order, a reading order, how to define heading tags, how to designate what the ARIA tags should be, so that when they hand off their designs to engineering partners, they have everything they need to create that experience as an accessible experience. We opened up a whole bunch of communication channels. We use Slack. So where we have, instead of having one person ask a question and have their answer answered in email or through a private channel, we have public channels where questions are posted, and we have people on those channels from engineering and UX and other areas that can help provide answers and to kind of respond to those discussions and talk about the best ways for us to do this. So we're just really raising awareness, making sure people have a place to go to ask their questions, general and specific questions about accessibility. We conduct regular office hours with our partner designers. So any work from the starting point when they're starting a project to they're about ready to deliver it to engineering, they come to our office hours to review the overall designs, to look at accessibility, and ensure that they're providing a consistent way to tell their engineers how to build this particular feature. And then we do QA during the development work as well, to test our product, test the areas of our applications to ensure that what's being shipped is accessible. Next slide. And then on the engineering side and the product side, we've gotten a lot of leadership support. We are using tools, both paid and free, to analyze the code as they're writing it, and other ways to check accessibility using web extensions that anyone can go in and run these tools. And as a designer, they can identify the things they have to go solve for their engineering partners, and engineering can use it as well. But very strong support from leadership to help us decide, when decisions are made that we have to take longer to postpone a release of a particular feature to ensure that we're making it accessible, and how important that is to not, this idea of MVP, if a minimalist developable project needs to include accessibility. That's not an optional consideration for, oh, we'll just ship it and we'll fix that afterwards. Like, we're really changing the way we think about our product. And it's now becoming much more top of mind, from product management to engineering to UX. People are asking questions and really thinking about the accessibility aspect of the work they're doing. All right, next slide. And then I'll hand over to Matt for the next part.
All right, awesome. Thank you. All right, so at Microsoft, on this next piece, what we're going to touch on is like the designing and building aspects. I don't have a lot here, just a couple nuggets that that resonate with us. One of the things here is generating empathy through awareness and education in the company. That's why we had that accessibility 101 training that went out to everybody, so that developers and sales and customer focused teams, phone team, basically every single employee became aware of accessibility. Every employee now knows what a screen reader is. They know what magnifier is. They know what assistive technology does. Before that, you may have had someone that had no idea what it is. One quote that we've been using internally, and our Chief Accessibility Officer, Jenny, actually has it on a shirt. It says, "Nothing about us without us." And that's kind of our mission statement internally, that as products are built, they have to be like, there's an accessibility review when products do get built. There's a whole team that an accessibility review is done, just like a privacy review, and I mean all those other reviews that normal engineering practices have to kind of go through. But it's a new process that's been built out. Building best practices is key as well. We've been releasing docs on Microsoft, docs.microsoft.com. And on there, it's like helpful guides, best practices on how to do things, how to set your organization up, like our support knowledge, our support articles with like the accessibility checker, with using narrator, using the magnifier, like all of those types of things are online and they're out there now, to where if you're just now navigating through vision loss, whatever stage of that journey that you're in, there's docs and best practices out there for the technology that we've developed and we've put out there. If you can't find something, reach out to any of the Boston chapter leads here, and they'll get you in sync with me, and I will get you taken care of. Next up is the curating our own knowledge base. So as things happen, that enterprise disability answer desk and the disability answer desk at Microsoft, we build a knowledge base and then start tracking it. And the engineering teams watch that knowledge base as well. So they see those cases coming in. So they're aware of things or bugs or regressions in the product that need to be resolved right away. And things get turned around pretty quick. One of the things that we've been really championing lately is fixing bugs or regressions within 30 days with it's called the monthly enterprise channel. But even our current channel builds, you'll get hot fixes and things right away. So if there is an accessibility issue, it's reported to Microsoft. If you're on that current channel of Microsoft 365 apps, you're going to get it faster than most other customers or even companies that are out there, because they could be running the semi-annual channel, which only gets it twice a year. Go ahead and jump forward. So this slide, when I talked earlier, I shared some ideas around that every single one of us may face a disability or like an impairment. Something's going to happen eventually in our life where we can use assistive technology and things that we put together. Some of the tools that I'm going to talk about are read aloud, translator, and dictate. In essence, like from a modern life perspective, you might use read aloud to buzz through an RFP, or you have training to do and you want to just you want to listen to it, almost like I forget the Amazon's book company, but where you can Audible, where you would have a book on audio and it would read the book to you. It's that same kind of concept where if you use read aloud, it'll just buzz through the text and read it aloud to you. Read aloud does have a bunch of nice voices. So it's not that computer generated voice that's really tough on a lot of the screen readers that are out there. Microsoft even announced at Ability Summit new natural voices that are in our beta channels of Windows that we'll be releasing later on, but it's more soothing and natural voices for Windows Narrator for screen reader. Next up is the situational type situations where you might need read aloud when you're outside if you're in bright sunlight, or you might need the dictate to type an email if your hands are full. I mean, there's a ton of different scenarios around that. From a temporary perspective, you could have had eye surgery, you could have a broken arm or a broken leg, and you need you're just not as agile as you were before, to where I know the products that we're talking about tonight are all about accessibility, but what I'm trying to pivot here and try to point everybody to is that every single person, sighted, full mobility, whatever it is, like every one of us are going to end up sometime in some sort of situation where we can benefit from these tools. And they were created for people for accessibility, but everybody can benefit. And I think that's it for that one. I'm going to kick it back over to Daniel.
Great. So the next section we will talk about a little bit is expanding accessibility skills and knowledge. So with Smartsheet, Microsoft is going to talk about it first. Sorry, Matt, you got one more demo first, and then I'll take it back over.
Yeah, I was gonna. This late audible. Yeah, do you want to just so you can get through your content? We'll go to this last. If I have time, I'll demo. If we don't have time, I won't.
Okay, great. Next slide. So, one of the things we've done recently, is to do some usability studies with participants with visual impairments. And I've been UX designer for 25 years, and I've been in a lot of usability studies. And part of what we had to learn here is a new way of conducting a study. You want to go to the next slide. Basically, the UX designer is usually a very passive voice, and the researcher conducts a plan, and we know what questions we hope to answer, and the researcher recruits people and conducts a study, and the UX designer just sort of watches. But we understood right away that because our products are not as accessible as we would like them to be, we knew that we were going to have a different way of doing study research. And we discovered really quickly that we wanted to keep it more flexible and more conversational. So we had tasks we hoped to accomplish, but it was much more valuable for us to stop and talk to the participant about how they expected to perceive the information, what tools they used that did it well, so we could really understand what the best practices were. How do we craft solutions that meet the user's expectations instead of just plowing through the 5 tasks and then having a rating at the end of how well that went. But so we really took a different approach to that, and so the researcher and I worked very closely to get the most, like to encourage to draw more information that we would be able to turn into experiments and tests for us to use that would better reflect how participants expected to use the services. So that was a really enlightening experience for me. Next slide. So we tested a few things. We had a login screen, which involved going to our corporate website and finding the login link. And then we had a logged in user homepage, which customers can use to find the tasks they've been assigned and assets they've recently worked on. And we had a grid, which is the spreadsheet data stored in a grid format. And we tested these with visually impaired participants using the screen reader. One of the most interesting things we saw here was how different tools present the information, and how a user can pull up a link list. Like, regardless of where a link or a button exists on a page, they can access a button list and find the button they want in that way, but only if we've created the right semantic markup for that. Like if we're making a div, a fancy div that acts like a button for sighted users, but isn't actually a button, then those things are invisible to the tools, and they don't have any way to access that affordance, which was a really important thing for us to learn firsthand and to take into our accessibility work. Next slide. On a subsequent study, we tested an alternate view of the data. One of the ways that Smartsheet is powerful is that you have a source of data behind your view, but you can present it in a grid, in a Gantt view, in a card view, and other views that just present the data in different ways. So we have this card view, which a lot of teams use to track assigned tasks or status of things in an agile process, like having lanes for each of the different work items. And we tested this as well. And one of the things that we learned directly from this is the importance of the headings and the structure of the elements and how they relate to each other. So like a visual person could see there are lanes with a person at the top, and each card in the lane is an assigned task. And what the screen reader was presenting to the participant was basically a text file with a dump of content just all listed out. without any clear connection to task 1, task 2. And so seeing how that worked was really interesting. And then also things like a modal dialogue we have here, where on one side is a form to fill out to modify the content in the card. And on the other side is a conversation about comments and threads to discuss the work. And there's 2 different intents for that visual modal, but it has to be very clear to screen reader users that there's a specific place for modifying content and a space for discussing content, and having that be very clear to users. Next slide. As we looked into adding more tools to our accessibility toolbox, we did, as I mentioned before, look at a lot of browser extensions, and the engineering teams are using tools like Linter to check their code as they're writing it. But also we do a lot of in UX, we do a lot of prototypes. We wanted to create a wireframe prototype to take in a study or to show internally to kind of get buy-in before we invest in a lot of engineering work. So we've been doing keyboard only prototypes, so we can program our tool to only respond to key presses. So we can test that functionality where you wouldn't be able to use a mouse to click on or hover over certain pieces of the UI, but you have to use the keyboard to make that work. And we developed coded samples of best practice models like skip links. So how would we implement skip links at Smartsheet to give a way for regions to define which area of the page you want to interact with? And then really learning about how screen readers work. I got myself a PC laptop with JAWS and learning how the JAWS tool works, how NVDA works, and really including those tools in the UX and in the testing. So a lot of engineers have access to those tools now, so they can use it firsthand and understand how the tool works. Next slide. Here's a few examples on the screen. I have some images of some of the tools I mentioned. The Axe Core Dev tool, which can audit a part of a page or an entire page to identify accessibility issues and give you clear instructions on different ways that you can solve those issues. And then there's all other accessibility insights for web, other web tools that you can use in your browser extensions to do this kind of testing. So we put a lot of those in place. Next slide. So this is an example of the keyboard prototype I mentioned, where we have a wireframe model and there's a flow chart behind it which shows how it all connects to other screens. And then in order to test this internally, we had to include a kind of a legend on the screen to show which keys work, because we were trying to make sure that someone could use this prototype without any guidance from anyone walking them through it, and they would know which keys to press to experiment with that. And it's a great way for us to test our ideas and make sure we're going down the right path before we initiate a bunch of engineering work. Next slide. And then we are doing a lot of training now. So we've piloted some training for UX designers to try both general accessibility and specific to UX design. But we're building curriculums for all of our roles at Smartsheet. So we'll have like an engineering focused role, a PM focused role, training to help people get up to speed on how to do that. And then we're training the UX designers, current and new and designers, how to use those tools to annotate their designs, to be thinking about accessibility when they're creating new interaction patterns or experiences, and to make sure they know how to spec that correctly so their engineers can build it. Next slide. And then we also want to have standard solutions. So as we look at many different development teams at Smartsheet, and they're all solving similar problems, we want to centralize those solutions so that a user won't experience a different set of accessibility solutions in one part of the product, and then somewhere else something that does something totally different. So making sure we have a standard way for us to approach those accessibility fixes, and to support common solutions that are reusable and not just a bunch of one-off stuff. So we're doing that as well. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. I think, Tim, what do you think of skipping I can skip the demo and we can go to like a Q&A if anybody has anything, since we don't have much time left.
This is Bree. Matt, if you want to do the demo, we do have time. We have until 8:30. So
Oh, righteous. Oh,
yeah.
sweet. Okay.
So if you want
I
to do
didn't
the
know that.
demo, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, let me do a demo then, because that's gonna be awesome. All right.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, there are on the last slide of that deck some resources, both from Smartsheet and from Microsoft, if you want to refer to that later.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about one of them that we were talking about earlier. It's called Seeing AI. It's an app that Microsoft made. So if you have Android or iOS, it is geared towards persons that are blind. And it could work for you too, but definitely a really cool app to use. And let me figure out how to use Zoom, because I'm a Teams junkie and I need to share my screen and share audio.
So am I, Matt. Zoom is throwing me for a loop here. I'm clicking all over and different buttons here.
There should be a way that you can like morph it and say, no, behave like Teams, and make it work like that. All right, screen 2 is where we're going. I have share sound turned on. Here we go. And let me know when everybody sees that. Oh, I have to hit share. Trippy. Okay. There we go. All right. So everybody got that?
Yep, we can see it.
Cool. Okay. So first things first here, I want to jump into one of these things here that I was going to demo. So this is just your generic Microsoft website. And basically, like on the left side, there's table of contents, and on the right side, there's links. In the middle, there's all sorts of content here too. But if you're using Microsoft Edge, what you can do is turn on the immersive reader. And I'm gonna use my Zoom tool. So can you see that Zoom? Did that work?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so here's the Zoom tool. I use this every day. My mouse is a little bigger than I have it on most. I can use read aloud right off the bat, but I can also use immersive reader here on this menu. The nice thing about that immersive reader is when I tap it, watch this page change. So it's going to flip the whole page into an easier text format that I can read. If I go up here to the top and I go to text preferences, I zoomed in again. I'm zooming in because I can't see it, but I'll zoom out, then everybody else can hopefully see the bigger picture. But I have it set on white text on black. I can change that up on black on white. I can do like a sepia tone background, like a brown background, just to change up the text so it's easier to read. So that's some of the options. One of the other really cool things here is the grammar tools. Like I was saying earlier with my youngest son with dyslexia, I can highlight nouns, verbs, adjectives. So if I highlight the nouns with the bright pink, what's going to happen is you'll see all the nouns on the page change to pink. So that's a pretty sweet feature and an ability there. So I'll turn that off. Now I'm going to turn on read aloud. To be honest, I don't know which voice inflection I turned it on with. So
Overview of the Office Deployment Tool. Article. October 19th.
So that's how it's buzzing through. But in addition, I can jump over here to voice options. I can speed it up. I usually like to listen faster. And then I usually, when I get bored, I will jump to, where's it at?
English Canadian. So about and A have some nice Canadian inflections in that.
Which one?
English Canadian. I saw that one. That was fun.
Buzzed through it. I lost it.
That's fun.
I want to find one. There's some really, really good ones in here. So sorry, give me a second. There we go. Australian. Okay, so so now we're going to go Australian, and I'm reading a little faster. So anybody that's not used to a screen reader, get ready for your listening ears to be spun up.
October 19th, 2021. 12 minutes to read. Is this page helpful? Any additional feedback? Feedback will be sent to Microsoft. By pressing the submit button, your feedback will be used to improve Microsoft products and services.
So it's pretty cool how it'll read it to you. It'll go through and it'll highlight each individual line. So it's super helpful. I used this when I had to do some training, and went through it and used it like consistently, because when I was back and forth on the planes, I travel a lot for work, and reading on the plane, being legally blind myself, and like zooming it in, like everybody can read my stuff on the plane. So having my desktop set to regular text size and turn on read aloud with my Bluetooth headphones on, it was able to cruise through some content. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the immersive reader here. And to do that, I just tap that button again, and it jumps right back to my default page. So that one's that piece. The next thing that I want to show you is some emails here. And this one is the one that's not accessible. And to do this, I'm going to turn on Windows Narrator. To invoke that, I just do Control Windows Enter, if anybody doesn't know.
Mouse mode on. General, impacted devices list. Image, subject, edit, NUI document, from, edit, message actions, like message, impact, scan, from, impact, page 1 content, edit, read only.
Sorry, let me get this up here.
Hello.
I am not a screen reader user, so everybody that's a screen reader that's on here is like, really, dude? What are you doing?
Image, in line with text. Here, hello John Doe. Here are the impacted devices. Image, in line with text.
So you heard that it said, hello John Doe, here are the impacted devices, and then it said image in line with text. But
Image,
Not very
page
useful
1
on that.
content,
let me turn this off really quick.
exiting narrator.
So you can't, like, it didn't read the alt text for this because there's no alt text on this email or on this image inside the email. And even if I'm using a magnifier like I am right now, if I zoom in, like, look how pixelated that text is. Like, it's really, really hard to even see with a regular eye. Like, I can't really see any of the data. If I needed to use some of this data, I can't get it because it's an image. So I'm kind of stuck using this. So this is a completely inaccessible email. So I'm going to close that one out. I'm going to pull up my accessible email here. I'm going to fire back up our tool.
Mouse mode on. General, business, cap page. Here are the impacted devices. Image, in line with text. Image, in line with text. Image,
I'm sorry.
page 1 content, edit,
This is a terrible
read
demo.
only. Title bar, form, message actions, like message, impacted device, scan, table, enter table, 7 by 23, desktop 5B074 ET, row header, row 2 of 7, column 1 of 23.
All right, so what I
Exiting
want to do is
narrator.
just jump into that table so folks could hear the screen reader navigate down. By exporting my image, like this was my image in here it has alt text now, but previously it didn't. By exporting that data and dropping it into the email, it's just a good best practice on how to make it accessible. It was a super quick and easy thing. I could just drop that in there. So as far as the demo is concerned, those are the couple of the quick things that I wanted to share. One of the things that I will show you, if I hit reply all on this, and then I drag this one over, and then let me get rid of this and pretend like this is just a regular another email. You'll see up here at the top on review, I'm going to click on check accessibility. You'll see that it has accessibility on here. But if I open back up that inaccessible email, give me a second, let me open that one up. So this one, and if I reply to this one, and then I hit review, and then I hit check accessibility, it's going to list my accessibility issues. I'm going to zoom in on this, see where it says picture 1. And it's basically calling out that picture 1 does not have alt text. So that can help. One of the things that I want to show here is suggest a description for me. We have a tool that will automatically create alt text for you. But the thing that I don't like about it is that sometimes it's wrong. So it's just to be vigilant and diligent that you're constantly double checking your work whenever you're creating content. In here, if I go in here, the automatic alt text that it created for me, sorry about that zoom, I'm trying to zoom back out, but it basically says graphical user interface. And that is not graphical user interface. It's an impacted device list. So for a screen reader user, if I just left it as is and it said impacted user device or impacted, not impacted graphical user interface, it doesn't really mean anything. It's hard to comprehend and understand what that purpose is of that image. So it's just some quick tips really quick to jump in there. While I close this out, is there any questions or concerns or for anything for Daniel or myself? I think you might be muted. I don't know. Bree, do we know if you just put your hand up?
I have not seen any questions come through the chat or through email, so I'm not quite sure. I do see, I don't know, Beverly's coming off mute.
Yeah, coming off mute. Thank you both so much for all of this information, and I'm very glad you got to the demo at the end. Yeah, this has been really helpful. I'm involved with the Boston chapter. I'm affected by Stargards as well, and really appreciated all of the information and perspective that you guys shared. I wonder if you could also share a little bit about how you have brought working in accessibility into your careers. Was it always a part of your sort of career path to bring this kind of work into it? I also work in corporate, but it's it's not with sort of an accessibility bent.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could speak to that a little.
Sure.
Yeah, Daniel, you go for it, and then I'll take a swing at it.
I came from Expedia, where I worked for 8 years, and Expedia also had a huge initiative to make their product accessible. And when I came to Smartsheet, one of my first weeks, I had a one-on-one with my design manager, who asked me about something in my personal career that I was really passionate about, and I said accessibility as something that I just spent a lot of time doing that at Microsoft. At Expedia. And she basically said, well, you should really push for that. You should organize a lunch and learn. You should meet with this product manager. So that started my journey of being an accessibility champion at Smartsheet. But I'm just very pleased that she encouraged me to take that step. And I did a lot of research, and I presented a lunch and learn to 75 engineers. And it was the start of my journey. And that was about a year and a half ago. And now I'm the subject matter expert on UX. I'm helping to drive standards and practices for the UX team. And it's been really rewarding to me. So
that's awesome. So you kind of carved out your own role.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
Cool. Yeah. And for me, it was a little different. I've been at Microsoft almost 9 years. When I first started, I started in Premier Support. There's actually an internal story that I think they're trying to publish externally. I used to sit before assistive technology. I would sit 3 inches from my monitor so I could see it. And that's the way I worked. And then I never told anybody at Microsoft about it because I didn't want to get the accessibility card. And I know that's a bad mindset, but that's what I thought back then. I was like, dude, if I say anything, they might hire me just because I'm legally blind. And I want them to hire me because I'm technical and I know what I'm doing. And I don't want them to hire me just as sympathy. So I was completely blocked like that for a while, up to about 3.5, 4 years ago. I was talking and sharing some best practices and tips and tricks with some fellow colleagues. And they're like, we didn't know about this. We have no idea what you're doing. And this is new to us. And that at that moment, I kind of have an epiphany, and I was just like, I need to get over my pride and start talking about it publicly in Microsoft and just start screaming. because there was an accessibility team already built, but I was just scared to join them because I was like, man, let me just earn my salary and just shut up and sit here. And like that moment kind of fueled me. And ever since that moment, I've been like, if you talk to anybody internal at Microsoft, I am a sheepdog, bulldog, pit bull. Like if something's accessible and it's broken, I will chase down whoever it is internally to try to get them to solve it or fix it. Within your company though, some tips. If you don't do accessibility yet, lean in and talk to your IT team, talk to your human resources, and just say, hey, there's a ton of accessible tools out there. Hopefully your corporation uses Microsoft 365. If you're using Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and stuff like that, I can even help you with that too. So if you email me, I'll throw my email in the chat. I'll find out what company it is, and we'll do a top-down approach to where you can start helping them, because it's massively important that they realize that that there's people in the workplace. Like Microsoft even did this thing where they like I was able to go into human resources and check a box that I was legally blind, to like show HR that I was legally blind. So they, oh wow, okay, out of 250, 300,000 employees, whatever it is, like there's X amount that have these types of disabilities, and they can't, I don't think they can crunch the numbers like that through privacy data and stuff like that. But it's like, to me, it was important that I was able to self-identify with my corporation to kind of say, hey, this is where it's at. And then in addition, the accommodations team, if your company has accommodations, like totally lean in on them and ask for that, because those are like ADA guidelines for a lot of companies that they're required to provide. So if you don't have an Iris Vision, if you don't have a Cloverbook Pro, if you don't have some cool assistive technology to get your job done, hard press them, and I'll help you.
That's awesome. I'll take you up on it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and I see Martha has her hand up as well.
Thank you, Bree, and thank you, Matt and Daniel, for an interesting presentation. Matt, I have a question. I'm a JAWS user. I'm totally blind. Microsoft Suite narrator is my backup when JAWS goes silent. Can you now, is there, and I use Outlook, of course, for email. Can I now dictate my emails, or how do I do that?
You could turn on dictate. With JAWS, it might be a little hard because you're going to have to navigate up to the ribbon and on an outgoing email. Let me spin up an email and tell you which tab it's going to be on.
Okay.
It is on, it's actually on the main message tab. So when you're on the message tab, farther over to the right hand side, you're going to be underneath. It's the, if it calls it out by sections, it's the voice section, and then dictates right there.
Okay, so
but you
message,
can also
you want to tab to the voice section, and somewhere under the voice section it says dictation or something.
Yep, it'll be dictation under, or dictate. Also on your keyboard, is it a PC? Are you on a Windows PC?
Yes.
On Windows, if you're on Windows 11, I don't know if it works with Windows 10, but you could try pressing Windows H. And if you, I put my email address in there, so if you email me, I'll send you a ton of stuff on it. And I'll make sure it's accessible, that it's all in text so JAWS can cruise through it. But there's a hotkey called Windows H, which will allow you to hit Windows H, and then you can use your voice to navigate on the computer. You can use your voice to type in search boxes, stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's really cool stuff. I'm more than happy to have like a side session. Email me. We'll figure out a time that works for both of us. I'm in the East Coast as well. I live in Tampa, Florida. But we're more than happy to jump on a call and work through it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Matt, I know you're going to Visions. Did you want to give a little plug about your booth down there?
Yeah, good call, man. I forgot. So if you're in Tampa, or if you're in if you're in Boston and you're going, June 17th and 18th is the Visions 2022 conference for Foundation Fighting Blindness. There's some awesome speakers that are there. If you look it up on the Foundation Fighting Blindness page, we'll drop a link in the chat for it too. But myself and a guy named Philip that works in Fort Lauderdale that has Stargarts, that works at Microsoft, and we're both going to be at a booth, and we're basically setting up like a geek squad for low vision and blind people. So that's our whole purpose. Like, we're not trying to sell nothing from Microsoft. We're just going to stand there and wait for questions and equip people with answers and say, hey, this is what I do. This is how I can do it. This is how you can solve that. And if we can't solve it, we're going to write down all the questions, and we're going back to our enterprise disability answer group or disability answer group and voice the concerns. Especially with, like, if you're using JAWS or like any of the other screen readers out there, Zoom text, if you're using Zoom text, like any of those types of things, if there's challenges with it with Microsoft products, that's what we just want to be there to help people out. But in addition, that conference, there's a ton of really cool speakers that are coming in, and then there's other vendors inside that exhibit hall that we're going to be in. Iris Vision is going to be there. There's going to be a bunch of different really cool places that you can check out that offer low vision and blind services. So super cool if you're in June and you're in Orlando.
Awesome. Thanks for that plug, Matt. I think Beverly, I think you're going to be a newly minted accessibility champion at your organization after tonight. And, you know, I think I've learned a ton just talking to these two guys throughout our planning sessions. You know, they're both passionate about it, as all of us are. I think it's infectious. I think it grows on everyone the more you talk about it and the more it comes up. You know, I think one of the interesting things I noticed in talking with both Daniel and Matt is that you don't have to be, you know, in an accessibility formal role, right? It's something that you can do at your organizations, no matter your level, no matter your role, no matter what your day-to-day is. You can embed that everywhere. And that's one of the main takeaways, you know, no matter the size of the organization, no matter the revenue, no matter the employee count, it's something you can do every day. And every little bit helps, right? I see a lot of people kind of shaking their head, yes, but you know, you may think that something is a small thing, but to someone else, it's huge. So, you know, it was really eye-opening, enlightening, talking to these two guys. They're rock stars in the accessibility space. Hopefully it was beneficial and knowledgeable for everyone. Hopefully people picked up a new tip or a trick tonight. And of course, you know, feel free to reach out to us with anything else that you have questions with. If you want to talk to someone, we're always available. And I'll kick it back to Bree here to close us out.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Matt and Dan, for an incredible presentation. I'm really excited that this was recorded so that we're able to share with the masses and for anybody who was on to rewatch again. Special thanks to Tim for really doing some incredible legwork for this presentation. We wouldn't have been here without him. And to the rest of our chapter leaders that are on, we are going to be planning our next speaker series once this is over. So keep a lookout for some more information on future events. I will also be sharing all of the links we discussed today and contact information on the follow-up email that'll be coming out either tomorrow or Monday. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, big thank you to Matt and Daniel. They're the stars tonight. They made me look good, and I can be trusted from here on out in the Boston area. So really appreciate you guys volunteering and taking the time. Job well done. So thank you both.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Reach out.
Everyone.
Anybody on here, if you need something, email me.